Hollywood told you the golden age was all sequins and saints, but buried behind studio contracts and stage smiles are real production memos accusing beloved stars of sabotage, cruelty, and public meltdowns, allegations the studios paid to keep silent. As evidence stacks up, the women you thought you adored may be nothing like you imagined. Why did everyone ignore the warning signs? The answer starts with the machinery that built their myths. Studio contracts in the 1930s and 1940s spelled out every detail of a star's life, from how they dressed to who they appeared with in public. Morality clauses, some reading, "The artist shall not commit any act or become involved in any situation which will tend to degrade the artist or bring the artist into public disrepute," were written into nearly every agreement. Studios like Warner Brothers and MGM enforced these rules with relentless discipline, monitoring personal behavior and deploying teams of publicists to bury any whiff of scandal. Publicity departments staged photo shoots and manufactured magazine stories, while powerful columnists like Hedda Hopper and Luella Parsons acted as both mouthpieces and shields, ensuring negative stories about favored stars never reached the public. The machinery was designed to keep the public image spotless, but behind the scenes, tempers were left unchecked. Miriam Hopkins, for example, became notorious for her on-set feuds. During the filming of The Old Maid in 1939, Hopkins clashed openly with Bette Davis. Director Edmund Goulding described the atmosphere. If it wasn't lighting, it was costuming or camera angles. They behaved like perfect little bitches. Hopkins was accused of blocking co-stars' faces with her cigarette and making wardrobe changes to undermine their looks. Crew members recalled her habit of dusting furniture or moving in the background during Davis's close-ups, all calculated to steal attention. These antics led to extended shoot times and forced the studio to stage publicity stills of the two actresses in boxing gloves, pretending friendship while chaos simmered off camera. Virginia Mayo's reputation among crews was even more explosive. While fan magazines painted her as the gentle girl next door, insiders told a different story. A crew member from 1947 remembered she could tear through a set like a tornado. A few times she made a script girl cry. On the set of The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Mayo's temper boiled over, resulting in a thrown prop and a 2-hour shooting delay. Studio PR teams scrambled to contain the fallout, commissioning glowing magazine profiles to counteract the whispers. Memos from Warner Brothers in 1948 reveal a strategy of paying for character reference pieces in major fan magazines, all to keep Mayo's real reputation hidden from the public. In the world of Golden Age Hollywood, the gap between image and reality was enforced by the contract and protected by silence. Peggy Cummins arrived on the set of Gun Crazy in January 1949 with a reputation for sharp wit, but the atmosphere quickly soured. A production report from that month details a full day lost, citing an atmosphere of derision on set, attributed chiefly to Miss Cummins' conduct. Extra John R. later recalled how Cummins openly mocked his line readings, pulling faces behind his back and letting her laughter carry across the soundstage. Studio memos flagged her for chronic unprofessionalism, warning that continued disruptions could jeopardize her contract. Yet, as long as box office numbers held, the complaints piled up without consequence. Behind the scenes at Warner Brothers, in 1933, Joan Blondell's wholesome image was carefully maintained for the public. Internally, things looked different. A memo circulated from director Busby Berkeley to studio head Jack Warner, noting Blondell's persistent angling for additional scenes and rumors among cast of her attempting to rework other actresses' lines in her favor. One anonymous co-star from Footlight Parade described how Blondell would suggest to directors that she could deliver another actress's lines better, always managing to appear innocent in front of the camera. Years later, Blondell herself admitted, "Hollywood was no place for saints. You had to be clever to advance." Marie Windsor, known for her icy femme fatale roles, extended that chill to her colleagues. In 1955, director Richard Fleischer wrote in his diary, "Marie went on a tirade, berating a young extra for looking at her wrong. Tempers flared that halted shooting for 30 minutes. Windsor's demands grew so notorious that casting summaries for the narrow margin noted a dip in morale among extras, with Windsor's ongoing complaints about background artists cited as a factor. Private correspondence and director diaries from the period routinely describe Windsor's temper as vicious, with orders for silence and strict rules about eye contact enforced on set. These paper trails, memos, diaries, and production reports reveal a pattern of calculated moves and unchecked power. Each document, stamped or scribbled in the margins, offers a glimpse of how far some actresses would go to control the set, their image, and the people around them. Linda Darnell's reputation for beauty on screen did little to shield her crew from humiliation behind the scenes. During the production of Fallen Angel in 1945, makeup artists found themselves the target of Darnell's public criticism. AFI oral history interviews recall her berating staff in front of the entire set, questioning their competence and demanding do-overs with a crowd watching. Production notes from 20th Century Fox document several delays, each blamed on Darnell's refusal to enter makeup until other actresses had left the area. This was not a one-off tantrum. Crew members described a pattern of Darnell freezing out anyone who drew attention away from her, whether it was a new makeup assistant or a rival starlet. The effect rippled through the crew, who learned to avoid eye contact and speak only when spoken to. Colleagues would later note that Darnell's behavior, while harsh, was fueled by the relentless pressure of the studio system and years of exploitation, but the damage to morale was real and lasting. Ann Sheridan's offset conduct took a different, more public form. In 1945, after a night out at the Brown Derby, Sheridan became involved in a barroom altercation that drew the attention of the LAPD. While police records from that era rarely survived studio interference, a Warner Brothers memo referenced the need for immediate public relations intervention after an incident involving Miss Sheridan and local authorities. The studio's crisis team acted quickly, instructing friendly columnists to highlight Sheridan's war bond drives and patriotic image in the next news cycle. Meanwhile, photo agencies quietly labeled a set of negatives from the night as unreleased proof Sheridan 1945, keeping evidence of the altercation out of the public eye. These efforts ensured that while rumors of Sheridan's temper and public confrontation circulated in Hollywood, her oomph girl persona remained intact for fans across the country. The machinery that protected stars' images in the press began to strain as real events threatened to spill over, exposing the limits of even the most powerful studio cover-ups. Dolores Del Rio's name carried real power in the 1940s Hollywood studio system, and she knew how to use it. During production on Journey into Fear in 1942, she requested that a supporting actress be removed from the cast. Internal casting notes from RKO that year mentioned her contract's unusual clause, allowing her to object to any female co-star she considered a threat. The record does not show a signed memo with her signature, but several oral histories and production summaries describe at least 2 cases where Del Rio's objections led to recasting. Studio correspondence hints at her growing anxiety about changing tastes and loyalty, especially as younger actresses entered the scene. While some historians argue this was standard operating procedure for stars fighting to stay relevant, the effect was clear. Careers could stall or vanish based on a single request from above the title. Paulette Goddard's public charm hid a much colder reality behind closed doors. In 1948, a memo from her secretary described a pattern of humiliation and abrupt firings for the smallest mistakes. Assistants recalled being berated in front of other staff or dismissed without warning, their careers derailed over trivial errors. Stories circulated in the industry about Goddard paying columnists to smear rivals. But these claims rest on a single rumor. No financial records or signed contracts have surfaced, and even the most detailed biographies flag this as unverified gossip. What remains is a pattern: emotional cruelty documented by those closest to her, and a climate of fear among subordinates who rarely spoke out. The absence of hard evidence for certain allegations raises a different kind of question. In an industry built on secrecy, contracts, and carefully managed rumors, how much responsibility falls on the star, and how much on the system that enabled them? The line between fact and legend blurs, leaving viewers to weigh the stories, the paper trails, and the silences that still hang over Hollywood's golden age. Hollywood's illusion machine is not history. It is alive in every headline and on every red carpet today. The illusion of glamour still hides darker truths. As reputations are still manufactured and scandals still managed, the line between myth and reality blurs. The question now: how much truth are we willing to see behind the next silver screen? Share your thoughts below.
Forget bad acting. That's easy to forgive. What these actors did behind closed doors, that's where the real horror stories live. And somehow, they still got standing ovations. Laurence Olivier's on-set bullying. He was already one of the biggest names in British acting when he signed on to direct and star in The Prince and the Showgirl, 1957. His co-star? Marilyn Monroe, Hollywood's biggest export at the time. What should have been a dream pairing turned into a toxic disaster. Olivier made it clear from day one that he didn't respect Monroe. He mocked her acting style, called her unprofessional, and told crew members she was just a body, not an actress. According to accounts from the set, he hated her method acting process and refused to accommodate her needs. Monroe often struggled with anxiety and relied on her acting coach, Paula Strasberg, for support. Olivier banned Strasberg from the set and then mocked Monroe for falling apart. Tensions got so bad that Monroe would cry between takes. Crew members said Olivier humiliated her in front of others, rolling his eyes and whispering insults during her scenes. Colin Clark, an assistant on set, later wrote in his memoir that Olivier purposely made things harder for Monroe, knowing it would throw her off. He reportedly told one crew member, "All she has to do is be sexy. Why is that so difficult?" Olivier didn't hide his contempt. In interviews, he called her impossible and blamed her for production delays, even though Monroe was dealing with health issues and pressure from both studios. Her husband, Arthur Miller, who visited the set, later said Monroe was emotionally bullied by Olivier from start to finish. After filming ended, Monroe refused to ever work with him again. Olivier, for his part, wrote later that directing her was like trying to teach a pig to sing. That quote stuck, and not in a good way. There were no public consequences, but the stories survived, and they paint a very different picture of the so-called legend. Jerry Lewis's co-star harassment. He made his name as a comic genius, but behind the scenes, he was a nightmare for many of the women who worked with him. Several former colleagues have since spoken out, describing a long pattern of inappropriate behavior, emotional abuse, and control. In the 1950s, actress Karen Sharp was cast opposite Lewis in The Disorderly Orderly. She later said Lewis invited her to his office and made an inappropriate move that left her feeling cornered and unsafe. When she rejected him, he told her she'd never work again and followed through. She never did another major film. In her words, "He was abusive and cruel. If you said no, you were done." Hope Holliday, who worked with Lewis in The Ladies' Man, told a similar story. She said he cornered her in a dressing room and forced himself on her. She escaped, but the fear stuck with her for decades. She didn't speak publicly until after his death. These weren't isolated stories. In the 1960s and 70s, Lewis kept a tight grip on his sets, especially around female cast members. He would limit their screen time, speak down to them, and brag that he alone decided who stayed and who got cut. He often used sexual threats as leverage. Lewis also had a reputation for humiliating his co-stars. On more than one set, he would make actresses read lines in front of the full crew while he interrupted with vulgar jokes. If they didn't laugh, he'd replace them. One assistant recalled him saying, "If she can't take a joke, she can't be in my picture." Many of these stories didn't come out until after Lewis died in 2017. But once the curtain lifted, the pattern was hard to ignore. Decades of silence, intimidation, and quiet blacklisting, all hidden behind a goofy smile and slapstick gags. Rex Harrison's cruel cast behavior. He built his career playing charming, upper-class men. In real life, he was known for being cold, rude, and often cruel, especially to those who couldn't fight back. Directors, co-stars, and crew described him as arrogant, condescending, and openly hostile to anyone he didn't respect. In the 1950s, his behavior drew serious concern when actress Carol Landis passed away shortly after their relationship reportedly ended. Harrison was married at the time. Landis rumoredly left a note, which vanished before police arrived. Harrison was the last person to see her alive. While he wasn't charged, his studio rushed to bury the story. Landis's family and friends believed he pushed her aside after promising her a future. His next big scandal came during the Broadway run of My Fair Lady. Julie Andrews, who played Eliza Doolittle, kept things professional, but insiders said Harrison treated her like a servant. He demanded the spotlight, refused to rehearse with understudies, and insisted on top billing even when Andrews started stealing the show. Stagehands said he often refused to speak to her between scenes and mocked her singing voice. On film sets, Harrison's temper was just as nasty. During Dr. Dolittle, 1967, he regularly exploded at crew members and demanded constant rewrites to suit his mood. He got into shouting matches with the director and made racist remarks about extras hired for background scenes. The production went over budget largely because of his delays and demands. Despite his reputation, Harrison kept getting major roles. Studios looked the other way because he delivered strong performances. But to the people behind the scenes, he was a constant source of fear and stress. He won an Oscar. He got a knighthood. But off-screen, the people who worked with him knew the truth. Rex Harrison made life on set miserable for anyone who wasn't Rex Harrison. Walter Matthau's mean-spirited conduct. He had the face of a grump and the timing of a pro. On screen, he was lovable, curmudgeonly, and always good for a laugh. Off-screen, not so charming. Behind the scenes, Matthau was known for being loud, insulting, and often downright mean. Crew members from his early films said Matthau had no patience for people he considered beneath him. He swore constantly, belittled production assistants, and made extras cry more than once. Matthau also had a habit of insulting people in front of crowds. He'd mock wardrobe choices, mimic voices, and call out mistakes during live takes. It wasn't playful teasing, it was meant to embarrass. One stand-in said, "You learned fast or you got humiliated." That was the rule. He treated some co-stars with respect, but not all. If he didn't like someone, he'd make sure the whole set knew it. During Plaza Suite, insiders claimed he locked himself in his trailer for hours just to avoid a cast member he didn't get along with. Filming reportedly stopped until he decided to come out. No one dared challenge him. Even directors weren't safe. Matthau would argue about scripts, change lines on the spot, and storm off if he didn't like a scene. He once walked out in the middle of a rehearsal and told the director, "You don't know what the hell you're doing." None of this ever made the press. Studios kept it quiet because Matthau delivered hits, and fans only saw the grumpy charm he perfected on screen. The yelling, the insults, the tantrums, they stayed behind the camera. But ask anyone who worked on his sets for more than a week, and you'll hear the same thing. Walter Matthau wasn't acting like a jerk in his roles. He was just being himself. Dustin Hoffman's harassment era. For years, he was one of Hollywood's most respected actors. But in 2017, his name showed up in headlines for something else. Multiple women came forward with detailed accounts of harassment that dated back to the 1980s. The most widely reported story came from Anna Graham Hunter. She was just 17 when she interned on the set of the 1985 television adaptation of Death of a Salesman. In her account, Hoffman repeatedly made inappropriate comments, asked intrusive personal questions, and touched her in ways that crossed clear boundaries. She said she laughed it off at the time because she was scared and didn't know what else to do. "He was openly disrespectful," she wrote. "He did things you don't expect from a man twice your age and a star." Other women came forward with similar stories. Writer Wendy Riss said Hoffman propositioned her during a pitch meeting in the early 90s. When she declined, the meeting ended abruptly. A third woman, Catherine Rossiter, said Hoffman crossed physical boundaries with her regularly during their Broadway run of Death of a Salesman in 1983. She later said the trauma left her with years of anxiety. Hoffman responded to some of the allegations with vague statements, saying he respected women and didn't recall acting inappropriately. In other cases, he issued flat denials. But the number of women and the similarities in their stories made it hard to ignore. Before these reports, Hoffman had a clean public image. Serious actor, Oscar winner, family man. But the 2017 reckoning pulled back the curtain. The stories weren't anonymous. The women had names, faces, and nothing to gain by speaking out. He never faced formal charges, but his legacy now carries a stain. And for many of the people he worked with behind closed doors, that reputation was never spotless to begin with. Chevy Chase's racist, violent set behavior. By 2012, he was already a known headache in the industry. But things hit a new low on the set of Community. What started as minor tension turned into a full-blown disaster, with racism, violence, and offensive jokes all playing a part. It wasn't just one bad day. Chase regularly clashed with the show's creator, Dan Harmon, and took his frustration out on castmates. According to Donald Glover, who played Troy, Chase often made racist remarks between takes. One comment implied that Glover only got laughs because of his race. Glover didn't respond. He later said, "I saw it as Chevy trying to get under my skin, but I just wasn't having it." Joel McHale, who played the lead on the show, had his own issues with Chase. In an interview years later, McHale revealed that Chase injured him during a scene, pushing him too hard in a physical gag. He laughed it off at the time, but behind the scenes, the tension kept growing. Chase refused to rehearse, complained constantly, and walked off set when he didn't like the script. The worst came when Chase reportedly used a racial slur during a heated argument about his character's dialogue. Writers and producers were stunned. Chase later apologized, claiming he was trying to make a point about offensive writing. But no one was buying it. That incident marked the beginning of the end. Eventually, Harmon was fired after clashing with NBC leadership. Chase stayed on for another season but left before filming wrapped. The energy on set never fully recovered. Cast and crew said the atmosphere was toxic, largely because of Chase's behavior. This wasn't new. Long before Community, Chase had been called out for bullying and ego problems on Saturday Night Live, where he once slapped a fellow cast member backstage. But Community made the pattern undeniable and public. He didn't face any formal consequences. No lawsuits, no fines. But the damage was done. The charm had worn off. What was once seen as sharp wit started to look more like plain cruelty. And no one was laughing anymore. James Woods' underage allegations. He always had a sharp tongue and a long list of enemies. But in 2017, things turned serious. Actress Amber Tamblyn publicly accused him of trying to pick her up when she was just 16 years old. Tamblyn said she and a friend, also underage, were at a restaurant when Woods invited them to Las Vegas. When they mentioned their age, he allegedly said, "Even better." Tamblyn posted the story on Twitter after Woods mocked a gay coming-of-age film for featuring teen characters. She followed up with an open letter. "You were 60. I was 16. You knew better." Woods denied everything. He called the story a lie and claimed he'd never even met Tamblyn. but she stood by her account and said she had witnesses. Several other actresses chimed in, backing her tone even if not that specific story. The accusation struck a nerve because Woods had a long record of creepy behavior toward young women. Back in the early 2000s, Woods had a relationship with Ashley Madison, a woman 40 years younger than him. She was reportedly just 19 when they started dating. Years later, he was seen on red carpets with even younger dates, drawing raised eyebrows but little pushback from the industry at the time. Online, Woods didn't help his case. He became known for posting hateful, sometimes threatening tweets. In 2017, he tweeted an image attacking a gender non-conforming child and their parents. When called out, he doubled down. The backlash was fierce, but he refused to apologize. For years, he had been considered one of Hollywood's more intelligent, if difficult, actors. But his public behavior grew more aggressive, more political, and more disturbing as time went on. Studios started backing away. By the end of the 2010s, Woods wasn't just disliked, he was avoided. No formal charges were ever filed, but his name became shorthand for an aging actor who used fame as a shield for predatory behavior. And unlike his movies, real life didn't come with a script rewrite. The damage was done, and people were finally paying attention. Jared Leto's disturbing gifts. In 2016, Jared Leto's method acting crossed the line from committed to uncomfortable. While filming Suicide Squad, he stayed in character as the Joker, not just on camera, but off. What he did in the name of immersion left several cast and crew members disturbed. According to multiple co-stars, Leto sent out bizarre gifts to help everyone get into the mindset of a chaotic villain. These included adult items, strange props, and even a live rat reportedly delivered to Margot Robbie. Viola Davis confirmed that a pig carcass was sent to the cast during a rehearsal. Actor Adam Beach later said the crew was genuinely unsettled. During early interviews, Leto leaned into the reputation, saying he wanted to create an intense dynamic. But after the public started raising concerns, he changed his tune. He claimed many of the stories had been exaggerated and said it was all part of getting into character. Mostly fun and games, he called it. The people on set didn't seem to agree. It got to the point where Warner Brothers reportedly asked him to scale things back. Some cast members said they avoided interacting with him during production. What was meant to build tension for the role turned into real stress behind the scenes. This wasn't the only time Leto made headlines for off-screen behavior. Around the same period, complaints over workplace treatment were reportedly filed. And on social media, questions surfaced about his interactions with young fans, though no formal action was ever taken. In the end, Leto's version of the Joker barely appeared in the film, less than 10 minutes of screen time. But the off-camera stories stuck. Most of the cast has since spoken about it in cautious terms, some jokingly, others not at all. Leto says it was all in service of the role. But for the people on the receiving end, it didn't feel like performance. It felt personal, and not in a good way. For many involved, the most unsettling part of the experience had nothing to do with what ended up on screen. Gerard Depardieu's assault conviction. He was once one of France's most celebrated actors. By 2025, he was a convicted offender. His fall wasn't sudden. It followed years of accusations that had been ignored, buried, or brushed off. That changed when two women spoke up about what happened on a film set in 2021. The production was Les Volets Verts. According to court documents, Depardieu was accused of touching two women, a set decorator and an assistant director, during filming. The women reported that he touched them without consent during routine interactions. Their complaints led to a formal investigation. At trial, more than 20 women came forward with similar stories. Some dated back decades. They described a pattern. Depardieu would use his fame to cross boundaries, often in professional settings. The court focused on the two most recent cases, both of which were backed by witness statements and internal reports from the set. In May 2025, Depardieu was found guilty. He received an 18-month suspended sentence, was fined, and added to France's National Registry of Offenders. The ruling was historic. It was one of the few times a major European film star faced legal consequences for this kind of behavior. The verdict sparked a national conversation in France. Depardieu had long been seen as untouchable. He starred in over 200 films and was a cultural icon. Presidents praised him. He held dual citizenship. Even when allegations surfaced in earlier years, they were dismissed as tabloid gossip. But the tide shifted. The testimonies were consistent. The stories lined up. And the excuses wore thin. During the trial, Depardieu denied wrongdoing and showed little remorse. His legal team argued that he was being targeted for his fame. The court didn't agree. Since the conviction, several film festivals quietly removed his name from promotions. Some projects were shelved. His defenders grew quiet. The industry that once protected him finally took a step back. He hasn't apologized. He hasn't stepped away. But for the first time in his career, the consequences caught up to him, and the public stopped pretending they didn't know. Steven Seagal's serial accusations. He built his brand as the tough guy who never lost a fight. But for decades, women behind the scenes told a very different story. Starting in the early 1990s, a steady stream of accusations followed him from co-stars, assistants, and women who auditioned for him in private. In 1991, actress Rayanne Malone said she was invited to Seagal's office to read for a role. Instead, she claimed he made inappropriate advances and locked the door behind her. Another woman, Christine Keeve, told a similar story from the same period. Both women said the studio discouraged them from speaking out. That same year, Warner Brothers reportedly paid a six-figure settlement to resolve another complaint involving Seagal's behavior during casting. Details were never made public, but the incident was widely reported at the time and quietly buried. In 1996, Jenny McCarthy said she showed up for an audition and was asked to undress, even though the scene didn't call for it. She refused. He told her she'd never work for him again. Years later, Juliana Margulies said Seagal brought a weapon to a hotel room during a late-night script meeting. She left immediately. The pattern didn't stop. In 2018, Portia de Rossi came forward with her own story. During an audition, she said Seagal unzipped his pants mid-meeting. Her agent later told her not to worry. He does that to everyone. By 2020, more than a dozen women had shared similar experiences. Some described unwanted touching. Others said he used his role as producer or lead actor to lure them into uncomfortable situations. Still, Seagal denied all wrongdoing and avoided legal action in the United States. He later moved to Russia, accepted citizenship, and became close to President Vladimir Putin. Since then, he's appeared less in Hollywood and more in foreign state media. Critics called it an escape from accountability. Seagal hasn't faced criminal charges, but the sheer volume of consistent, detailed stories makes it hard to dismiss. For years, he played the unbeatable action hero on screen. But off-screen, the damage he left behind caught up to his legacy, even if not the law. They played legends on screen and monsters off it. You didn't just watch them, you believed in them, and that's exactly how they got away with it. Clark Gable's secret child. He was Hollywood's king in the 1930s. Fans adored him as a rugged hero and swooned over his charm and hits like It Happened One Night. But behind his handsome smile was a dark secret. In 1935, while filming Call of the Wild, Gable had an affair with co-star Loretta Young. Both stars knew that public knowledge of their relationship would ruin their careers, so they hid everything carefully. Their secret took a serious turn when Young discovered she was pregnant. Afraid of the scandal, she made a heartbreaking choice. She vanished from Hollywood, traveled abroad, and quietly had a baby girl named Judy Lewis. Then, to keep appearances intact, Young placed Judy in an orphanage temporarily. Months later, she publicly adopted her own daughter, pretending Judy was an orphan child she generously rescued. The studios loved this story because it made Young look noble. Meanwhile, Gable completely turned his back. According to Judy Lewis's 1994 memoir, Uncommon Knowledge, Gable refused to acknowledge her as his child. She grew up confused about why she looked so much like a movie star she barely knew. Judy spent decades dealing with rumors and whispers about her true parentage. When Judy confronted her mother in adulthood, Young finally admitted the truth, but begged Judy to stay silent. Gable, protected by the powerful MGM studio, was never publicly exposed in his lifetime. Fans kept idolizing him, never imagining he abandoned his own daughter. Only after Gable died did the secret begin unraveling. Young confirmed the story privately before her death, and Judy bravely spoke out. Fans felt betrayed. Hollywood's leading man had tricked everyone with a flawless image while leaving his own daughter hidden in the shadows. Joan Crawford's cruel parenting. In the 1940s, Crawford was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. She won an Oscar for Mildred Pierce in 1945 and was seen as beautiful, talented, and successful. Magazines showed her smiling with her adopted children, looking like the perfect mom. Fans believed she was kind and loving, but the truth at home was very different. In 1978, Crawford's daughter Christina wrote a book called Mommy Dearest. In it, she told painful stories about how her mother treated her. Christina said she was often hit and punished, even for small things. One night, Crawford found wire hangers in Christina's closet. She became furious, pulled Christina out of bed, and beat her while screaming. Christina said things like this happened often, not just once. The abuse wasn't just physical. Crawford often embarrassed Christina on purpose. If she didn't finish dinner or spoke out of turn, she might be forced to scrub the floors for hours. Sometimes she was locked in a closet or not given food. Years later, people who worked in the house said they saw this happen too. One time, Crawford got so angry she grabbed scissors and cut Christina's hair in a messy way. Christina had to go to school looking that way, and kids made fun of her. It was clear the punishment was meant to shame her. For many years, no one outside the home knew the truth. People in Hollywood later said they heard stories but stayed quiet to protect Crawford's career. When Mommy Dearest was published, many fans were shocked. Crawford denied everything, saying Christina was lying to hurt her. But Christina's story didn't stand alone. Witnesses backed her up, and the details were hard to ignore. The woman fans thought was a loving mother was actually harsh and cruel behind closed doors. Joan Crawford had fooled the world with a fake image, and no one knew the truth until it was too late. Bing Crosby's harsh discipline. He was America's favorite crooner in the 1940s. He charmed fans with his easy smile and soothing voice in hit films like Going My Way, 1944. He wasn't just a star. Crosby represented the ideal family man. Newspapers printed photos of Crosby relaxing at home, laughing warmly with his 4 sons. Fans admired him as the perfect father figure. But behind closed doors, Crosby's real parenting style was shockingly different. In 1983, Crosby's eldest son, Gary, released a memoir titled Going My Own Way. In it, Gary revealed that Crosby's cheerful public image hid a strict and abusive father. Gary described routine physical punishments he and his brothers endured throughout their childhood. Small mistakes like talking back or poor grades often resulted in brutal discipline. Crosby's punishments included beatings with a belt studded with metal, leaving bruises and scars. Gary recalled these incidents vividly, describing how he and his brothers would tremble when their father returned home, fearful of his unpredictable temper. These punishments weren't rare events. Gary explained that such harsh discipline was a constant threat in the Crosby household. Crosby demanded absolute obedience from his sons, enforcing discipline through fear. Gary and his brothers lived in constant anxiety, trying desperately to avoid angering their famous father. Bing Crosby never publicly acknowledged his violent discipline methods. His warm, friendly persona remained intact, shielded by studios and publicists who carefully protected his reputation. Even Crosby's closest Hollywood colleagues remained unaware, or chose to ignore, the harsh realities of his private life. Gary's memoir stunned Crosby's loyal fans, who found it almost impossible to reconcile the gentle star they loved with the brutal father Gary described. Some fans and friends initially accused Gary of exaggerating or lying for publicity. But soon, his younger brother Philip publicly confirmed Gary's accounts, stating that the memoir accurately described their difficult childhood experiences. The public reaction to these revelations was mixed. While many fans expressed shock and disappointment, others simply refused to accept them. Crosby's carefully constructed image as America's friendly, easygoing father figure proved difficult for fans to abandon. Hedy Lamarr's sticky fingers. In the 1940s, Hedy Lamarr was one of the biggest stars in Hollywood. People called her the most beautiful woman in films. She acted in popular movies like Algiers and Samson and Delilah. Fans saw her as classy, elegant, and perfect. But behind the glamour, Lamarr had a secret. She couldn't stop stealing. According to the biography, Hedy Lamarr, the Most Beautiful Woman in Film, 2010, Lamarr often took things from movie sets without asking. At first it was small stuff like necklaces, scarves, or makeup, but over time bigger and more expensive things started disappearing, like fancy dresses, jewelry, and even props from the sets. Crew members noticed and complained, but the studio didn't want the public to know. Instead, they covered it up and kept quiet. The studio, MGM, wanted to protect Lamarr's image. She was one of their biggest stars, and they didn't want fans thinking anything bad about her. So they paid for the missing items and told employees not to say anything. Behind the scenes, though, people were frustrated and confused about why Lamarr kept taking things. Her habit didn't stop when she left Hollywood. In 1966, years after her movie career slowed down, Lamarr got caught shoplifting in a Los Angeles department store. Store security found stolen items hidden in her purse. When news broke, it shocked fans across the country. Her mugshot was printed in newspapers, and people couldn't believe that the beautiful star had been arrested for stealing. Lamarr said she just forgot to pay, but many didn't believe that. Fans were confused. How could someone rich and famous steal something she could easily afford? But people who had worked with her weren't surprised. They had seen the signs long before. The arrest ruined her reputation. The image of Hedy Lamarr as a flawless beauty faded quickly. People started to see the real story, one the studios had hidden for years. For decades, fans believed Lamarr was perfect, but her secret habit told a different story. Behind the fancy dresses and movie star smile was a person struggling with something she couldn't control. And for years, Hollywood helped her keep it hidden. Spencer Tracy's double life. He was Hollywood's trusted moral hero in the 1940s. Known for films like Boys Town and Woman of the Year, he portrayed honesty, loyalty, and integrity on screen. Fans admired Tracy's calm strength and moral clarity, but starting in 1941, Tracy secretly began living a double life that studios carefully concealed. While filming Woman of the Year in 1941, Tracy met actress Katharine Hepburn. Despite being married to Louise Tracy, he quickly started an intense affair with Hepburn that would last almost 3 decades. Tracy never divorced Louise, partly because of his strict Catholic beliefs. Instead, he chose secrecy, leaving Hepburn hidden in the shadows of his public image. According to Katharine Hepburn's 1991 memoir, Me, Stories of My Life, she and Tracy maintained their secret by rarely appearing together in public. Studios cooperated fully, carefully, scheduling, filming, and events so Tracy could appear devoted to his wife and family. Hepburn accepted this arrangement, deeply in love with Tracy, who privately promised her he would never leave Louise. Fans remained unaware. Tracy's movies continued showing him as a devoted, honest family man. MGM, eager to preserve his clean reputation, expertly shielded Tracy from scandals. Even the press stayed quiet, despite rumors circulating around Hollywood. Louise Tracy herself reportedly knew of the affair but chose silence rather than face public humiliation. She remained Tracy's wife in name, quietly enduring his betrayal. Meanwhile, Tracy and Hepburn's relationship became Hollywood's open secret, known by insiders but concealed from the public eye. After Tracy's death in 1967, Hepburn finally spoke openly about their decades-long romance, confirming what many had whispered about. Fans felt betrayed. realizing their beloved star had deliberately deceived them. The devoted family man image that Tracy projected had been carefully constructed by studios eager to maintain his wholesome appeal. Ultimately, Spencer Tracy's double life fooled millions. Audiences trusted him implicitly, believing his films mirrored his true nature. In reality, Tracy was willing to deceive fans, friends, and even his family to protect his public image. The affair exposed the hidden side of a star whose honesty and morality existed solely on screen. Judy Garland's studio exploitation. In 1939, Judy became one of the most loved stars in Hollywood. She was only 16 when she played Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. People everywhere adored her voice, her smile, and her sweet personality. To fans, Judy looked like a happy and healthy teenager. But behind the scenes, her life was anything but happy. The studio that managed Judy, MGM, wanted her to stay young and thin. They were afraid she might gain weight, so they started giving her pills. During the day, they gave her drugs called amphetamines to keep her thin and full of energy. At night, they gave her sleeping pills to help her rest. Judy later said this happened often and that she had no choice. These drugs made her sick, tired, and dependent. By the early 1940s, Judy was already addicted to the pills. On movie sets, she was shaky and confused. She forgot lines, cried often, and couldn't concentrate. Instead of helping her, the studio blamed her. They called her difficult and said she was causing problems. But it was the studio's treatment that caused her to break down. One example happened in 1944 during the filming of Meet Me in St. Louis. Judy collapsed on set. She was shaking, dizzy, and barely able to speak, but the studio didn't stop filming. They gave her more pills and told her to keep working. Her health didn't matter. They only cared about the movie. In a 1967 interview, Judy spoke out. She said MGM used her and then threw her away. Her teen years were full of stress, pressure, and pain. For the rest of her life, Judy struggled with addiction and sadness, all because of how she was treated when she was young. At the time, fans didn't know any of this. They thought Judy was just naturally joyful and fun. They didn't know the studios had forced her into a dangerous cycle. People blamed her for her problems without understanding the truth. Cary Grant's marital control. He was one of the most famous actors in the 1930s and 1940s. He starred in movies like The Philadelphia Story and His Girl, Friday. People loved his charm, his smile, and his funny, smart way of speaking. Fans thought he was not just a great actor, but also a kind and caring person in real life. But the truth about his private life told a different story. In 1934, Grant married an actress named Virginia Cherrill. At first, it seemed like a perfect match, but things went bad quickly. According to court papers and books written about them, Cherrill said Grant was very controlling. He told her where she could go, who she could see, and even what clothes to wear. She said his jealousy made her unhappy. After just 1 year, she asked for a divorce, saying his behavior was cruel. In 1942, Grant married again, this time to a rich woman named Barbara Hutton. Their wedding was big news, and newspapers called them a glamorous couple. But behind the scenes, Grant acted the same way. He tried to control Hutton's friends, how she spent her time, and even how she used her own money. After 3 years, Hutton also divorced him, saying life with Grant had become too hard. The public didn't know any of this at the time. Hollywood studios made sure Grant's private life looked perfect. They showed him as a loving husband and a true gentleman. Fans had no idea he treated his wives poorly. Years later, letters and interviews came out that showed why Grant acted this way. People close to him said he was deeply insecure and needed to be in control. Still, Grant never admitted he had done anything wrong. He kept his polished image until the day he died in 1986. For many years, fans believed Cary Grant was just like the kind characters he played in movies, but his real-life actions were very different. Behind the charm and good looks was a man who tried to control the people closest to him and fooled the world while doing it. Bette Davis's toxic feuds. She was one of Hollywood's biggest stars in the 1930s. She was known for playing bold and strong women in movies like Jezebel, 1938. Fans loved her confidence and called her a fearless actress who didn't back down. Many believed she was a trailblazer who stood up for herself in a male-dominated industry. But behind the scenes, Davis wasn't just strong. She was often cruel to the people she worked with. In 1939, Davis starred in The Old Maid with another actress, Miriam Hopkins. The set quickly became stressful. According to people who worked on the film, Davis refused to rehearse important scenes with Hopkins. She would talk loudly about how bad Hopkins' acting was, embarrassing her in front of the crew. Crew members said Davis made it hard for Hopkins to do her job. That same year, Davis starred with Errol Flynn in The Private Lives of Elizabeth and Essex. During filming, Davis mocked Flynn's acting and made fun of him in front of others. Flynn later said that working with her was exhausting and that she made scenes more difficult on purpose. Studio workers confirmed that Davis often bullied co-stars she didn't like. Even with all this bad behavior, the studios didn't punish Davis. She was making them a lot of money, so they looked the other way. Fans only saw her glamorous public image and had no idea what she was like behind the scenes. Years later, other actors started speaking out. Olivier de Havilland, who acted with Davis several times, said Davis was jealous, competitive, and sometimes mean. Their relationship was difficult, even though fans thought they were close. At first, many fans didn't believe the stories. They thought Davis was just strong and misunderstood. But more and more stories came out in books and interviews, showing a pattern of toxic behavior. Bette Davis was famous for being bold and fearless, but that wasn't the whole truth. She often hurt others to stay on top. The strong woman fans admired had a dark side, one that Hollywood worked hard to keep hidden for years. Her power came with a price, and many of her co-stars paid it. Humphrey Bogart's drunken rages. In the 1940s, Bogart was the face of cool. The Maltese Falcon, Casablanca, and To Have and Have Not turned him into a tough guy legend. Audiences saw him as sharp, fearless, and in control. But off-screen, Bogart's drinking problem was no secret among those who worked with him. It often led to verbal abuse and chaos on set. Bogart's heavy drinking became especially disruptive during the making of The African Queen in 1951, though the pattern started earlier. According to Lauren Bacall's memoir and crew accounts, Bogart would arrive late, hungover, or already drunk. While filming, he frequently argued with crew members and lashed out at co-stars, his temper made worse by alcohol. Some days, production would stall entirely while waiting for him to sober up. Though Bacall loved Bogart, she didn't hide his faults. In her memoir, By Myself, she recalled moments when Bogart's drinking turned him sour and difficult. He became irritable, moody, and paranoid, especially when he felt challenged. Crew members from multiple films reported being cursed at, berated, or dismissed mid-scene. But studios rarely intervened. Bogart was too bankable. Producers often adjusted schedules to work around Bogart's habits. They avoided confrontation and told others to let Bogey be Bogey. Directors were warned not to push him too hard when he'd been drinking, or they'd risk shutting down the entire shoot. Publicly, none of this made the papers. Bogart's image as the rugged, dependable anti-hero remained intact. The press loved him, and gossip columns avoided mentioning his outbursts. Fans never saw the difficult man behind the swagger. They only saw the smooth talker who lit cigarettes with one hand and delivered perfect lines with the other. It wasn't until years after his death in 1957 that the full scope of Bogart's behavior came out. Memoirs, biographies, and studio records confirmed the alcohol-fueled tirades and on-set volatility. Fans were stunned. The actor they had admired for calm control and sharp wit had often been the most unpredictable person in the room. Humphrey Bogart's tough guy image sold millions of tickets, but the real Bogart, hidden behind the screen, was a man battling his own demons and taking that struggle out on everyone around him. Lana Turner's mob entanglement. She was pure Hollywood glamour. In the 1950s, she was one of the most photographed women in the world, with roles in hits like Peyton Place and The Postman Always Rings Twice. Fans adored her as a romantic icon. But in 1958, Turner's spotless image shattered when her private life collided with organized crime and ended in bloodshed. In 1957, Turner began dating Johnny Stompanato, a bodyguard and known enforcer for the Los Angeles mob. FBI files and court records confirm that Stompanato had ties to gangster Mickey Cohen's crime syndicate. Turner's friends and family knew he was dangerous, but she stayed with him anyway. Their relationship quickly turned violent. Stompanato was controlling and abusive, often threatening Turner during arguments, sometimes even on film sets. By early 1958, things had spiraled. According to Turner's testimony and police reports, Stompanato became increasingly possessive and physically aggressive. On the 4th of April, 1958, during a violent confrontation at Turner's Beverly Hills home, her 14-year-old daughter, Cheryl Crane, grabbed a kitchen knife and fatally stabbed Stompanato in what she claimed was an act of self-defense. The story exploded in the press. Newspapers ran photos of Turner crying on the witness stand during Cheryl's court hearing. The public was stunned. The glamorous movie star was suddenly at the center of a homicide case involving the mob, abuse, and her own teenage daughter. The court ultimately ruled the stabbing justifiable homicide. Cheryl was not charged, and Turner returned to the screen. But her image never fully recovered. Though she earned praise for her emotional courtroom testimony, many questioned why she had stayed with a known criminal and exposed her daughter to such danger. Hollywood tried to shift the focus back to Turner's beauty and talent, but the truth had already been revealed. Lana Turner had lived in a world far darker than her screen roles suggested. The woman audiences saw as graceful and refined had willingly entered a violent relationship with a man she knew was dangerous. For years, fans believed Turner's life was a fairy tale. The Stompanato scandal showed it was anything but. Her public image had fooled the world until it all unraveled in a single bloody night.
While millions of people were engrossed in the incredible movies and shows produced by the industry, both in their homes and cinemas, they remained oblivious to the darkness lurking within. Beyond the glamour and talent that Hollywood exuded, there was an underworld that was very different from what was being shown in the media. From rumors of murders to the mistreatment of actors and numerous atrocities that remained buried and far away from the public eyes, Hollywood was proved to be a dark and chaotic place. Well, let's just say nothing is hidden under the sun, because some of these dark and disgusting things that happened in the industry have now been confirmed to be true. The horrific fake film shoot. Anyone who knew about the film studio MGM knew that they were notorious for their dark deeds and would do almost anything to make a scandal disappear, and in order to protect their own. They had the money, the power, and the fixers, but when a biographer, David Sten, began to investigate them, he uncovered some secrets that they kept buried for years. One of these was what happened to a 20-year-old dancer named Patricia Douglas at a 1937 MGM party. According to David Sten, MGM did everything in their power to suppress the scandal when it erupted. They even went as far as hiding evidence and doing all they could to silence the victim, but it seems like her innocence screamed louder than their efforts, and soon enough their deeds were brought to the light. Although MGM was successful at burying the story back in the 1930s, David Sten found some evidence that proved that Patricia's story was real. She wasn't the young wannabe star trying to take down a powerful studio. She was a young, vulnerable girl whose innocence was taken away at an MGM party. In the words of the biographer, I managed to find old newspaper coverage, previously unseen photos, damning studio documentation, long-forgotten legal records, privately shot cinematographic evidence hidden in an MGM film vault, and, most amazing, Patricia Douglas herself. After 65 years of silence, she was finally able to tell her side of the story. According to Patricia Douglas, that incident completely broke her and turned her life upside down. Before that day, she was living a normal life and was already a part of the entertainment industry. Her love for dancing opened her up to opportunities, and at the age of 15, she had already appeared in 2 classics. Her mother was doing well financially, so she didn't need to work. She only took on a few jobs because she enjoyed it and wanted to keep herself busy. This chestnut-haired lady with porcelain skin would later get a casting call on the 2nd of May, 1937 that changed her life. She had no idea that this call was not what she thought it was, and although she hesitated for a while, she finally said yes. Looking back on that day, Patricia regrets saying yes to that call. In her words, "They never mentioned it was for a party, ever. I wouldn't have gone. Oh God, I wouldn't have gone." Although she and hundreds of other girls were invited for this so-called shoot, they would soon discover that this was no film shoot. It was a party that Louis B. Mayer had, organized to celebrate his salesman for a job well done, but this was no ordinary party. It was going to an alcohol-fueled party where all manner of atrocities would happen. The studio had become the greatest studio in Hollywood, and they bagged distribution deals that will keep them on top for several years. This party as their way of celebrating. Patricia Douglas was one out of the 120 young female dancers that received the casting call. It will surprise you to know that a well-known casting director made these calls so the girls had no idea what was about to happen. They were supposed to be dressed in fitted cowgirl outfits, and as soon as they got to the studio, they were transported to an unknown location for this party. On getting there, Patricia saw over 300 men partying, smoking, and taking all kinds of substances. She didn't see cameras, a crew, or lights. Patricia immediately started to feel uncomfortable, as she had never had any sexual encounter before. She certainly didn't want to be in such a wild party. Sadly, there was no way any of the girls could escape. As the party went on, a particular salesman called David Rose began to admire Patricia. He pretended to want to teach her a dance step, and before she knew it, he and other friends held her down and poured liquor down her throat. Soon enough, Patricia began to feel sick, and when she went outside to get some air, David Ross dragged her to the parking lot and took advantage of her in one of the cars. Interestingly, a parking attendant witnessed the whole thing, but he later denied. Patricia did not keep quiet about what happened. She told her mother about it, and they were able to hire an attorney, but every legal step she took proved futile. No one believed her. One can only imagine how many other girls went through a similar experience that night. Patricia, the only person who was bold enough to speak up, was shut down and called a liar by MGM. With their connections, money, and power, they were able to shut the case down. Among the evidence that was later found was a letter from publisher William Randolph Hearst to Louis B. Mayer saying, "Shut this down. Make her stop. Do you realize how damaging this is to the whole movie picture industry?" With the help of biographer David Sten, she was able to document what happened to her in the documentary titled Girl 27 before she passed on. The director with weird sexual preferences. After several decades of whining, dining, and having wild sexual encounters with celebrities, Scotty Bowers published a book titled Full Service: My Adventures in Hollywood and the Secret Sex Lives of the Stars. Bowers, who was said to have been a go-to guy for setting up all manner of trysts for some of Hollywood's most famous stars, decided to pen down all the escapes that these stars were involved in. While some of his celebrity clients were closeted gays and lesbian, other clients liked things that were weird and freaky. The revelations she made about Charles Laughton left everyone in shock. To the rest of the world, Charles Laughton was a brilliant director. He was a highly respected and influential figure in the film industry. Charles Laughton was an English stage and film actor as well as a director. Truth be told, his talent was recognized early in his career, and he gained fame for his versatility as an actor. He excelled in portraying a wide range of characters, from dramatic to comedic roles. Most people who were entertained by his works revered him. Some of his most notable performances include his portrayal of the hunchbacked bell ringer Quasimodo in The Hunchback of Notre Dame in 1939, Captain Bligh in Mutiny on the Bounty in 1935, and his chilling role as the tyrannical barrister in Witness for the Prosecution in 1957. Everyone saw him as a talented man who was laser-focused on his career, but no one knew the secrets he was keeping from the world. In addition to his acting prowess, Laughton also ventured into directing, where he demonstrated a keen eye for storytelling and visual composition. His directorial debut was with the film The Night of the Hunter in 1955, which has since been recognized as a classic of American cinema despite its initial commercial failure. Laughton's impact on the film industry was profound, and he was highly respected by his peers. Throughout his career, he received numerous accolades, including an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in The Private Life of Henry VIII in 1933. Apparently, when he was achieving all these, he was busy behind closed doors doing things that would have shocked his fans. According to Bowers, Charles's secret sexual activities were very different from that of his celebrity friends. He said Charles was into scat proclivities. Bowers revealed that Charles liked it when his sexual partners released on him, and on some occasions, he spread these substances on a sandwich and ate it. Bowers didn't judge this act, as he was an open-minded person who believed that people should do whatever they wanted, and in his words, the practice certainly didn't turn me on, but it was patently clear that it was regarded as a normal and acceptable part of sexual activity by its devotees, with Charles Laughton being one of them and Ty Power another. So who was I to judge? To each his own. Who would have thought that this talented man was involved in such sexual acts behind closed doors? Although there were already rumors about what he was involved in, Bowers' book confirmed the rumors and went into detail about what this celebrated director was doing behind closed doors. Charlie Chaplin and underage girls. He was a highly successful actor who was well respected in the industry. He was known to have inspired many other actors, but when rumors began to circulate about his preference in women, a lot of people lost respect for him. They simply couldn't believe it. Charlie Chaplin, a towering figure in the world of comedy, mesmerized audiences with his timeless humor and poignant performances on the silver screen. Yet, behind the laughter, his personal life was shrouded in controversy, particularly concerning his romantic entanglements. Soon enough, his secret preferences when it came to women became a subject of both fascination and scrutiny. Truth be told, Chaplin's predilection for marrying significantly younger women was evident throughout his life. His first marriage to 16-year-old Mildred Harris at the age of 29 set a pattern that would repeat itself. Despite the considerable age gap, Chaplin seemed drawn to youthful exuberance and innocence. However, his marriages were not devoid of tumult. Harris and Chaplin's union dissolved after 2 years. It would surprise you to know that he went on to date and marry yet another girl that was younger than him. The pattern persisted with Chaplin's subsequent marriages. At 35, he wed 16-year-old Leta Gray, embarking on a controversial journey that raised eyebrows even in the permissive circles of Hollywood. Their marriage was mired in scandal, with Gray alleging that she was coerced into matrimony due to her pregnancy with Chaplin's child. The marriage ultimately ended in a highly publicized divorce, amplifying the whispers surrounding Chaplin's romantic exploits. People found it difficult to reconcile the man he was in Hollywood to the man that was getting married to underage girls. In 1932, Chaplin found himself entangled with 22-year-old Paulette Goddard, who later revealed that she had initially misrepresented her age, claiming to be 17 when they first met. Despite the revelation, Chaplin pursued the relationship, culminating in marriage when Goddard was 26 and he was 47. Their union endured for 6 years, characterized by both moments of bliss and strain, emblematic of Chaplin's tumultuous romantic life. However, it was Chaplin's fourth and final marriage that garnered the most attention and controversy. At the age of 54, he wed 18-year-old Una O'Neill, the daughter of esteemed playwright Eugene O'Neill. This union, though met with incredulity and raised eyebrows, endured the test of time, remaining intact until Chaplin's passing. O'Neill's youthfulness and Chaplin's status as a renowned artist of his era magnified the intrigue surrounding their relationship. Chaplin's preference for younger women, coupled with the circumstances of his marriages, fueled speculation and gossip within the industry. While some viewed his actions as indicative of a romantic spirit unbound by societal norms, others condemned his behavior as exploitative and predatory. The allegations against Chaplin ranged from accusations of manipulation to outright abuse, with his choices seemingly confirming the suspicions harbored by his detractors. There were even rumors that he fled to a different country at a certain point in time in order to avoid certain statutory laws. It seemed like he couldn't help himself, but most people who heard about it were disappointed. They couldn't believe that such a respected man was involved in such. However, despite the condemnation he got from others, he didn't hide the fact that he preferred underage girls. She adopted her own child. Before he became a Hollywood star, it was said that Clark Gable was friends with some questionable people. Perhaps this was why he reached out to a fixer when he discovered that he got a young actress pregnant. What was done after that forever traumatized the child and made her grow up believing that she didn't have parents. If anyone was the epitome of Hollywood masculinity, it was Clark Gable. This charming, leading man-made heart swoon across the globe. He was the kind of guy you'd imagine tipping his hat as he sauntered into a room exuding confidence. And in 1934, he was smack dab in the middle of one heck of a scandal that involved a young actress named Loretta Young. She was a rising starlet with doe eyes and a smile that could light up the silver screen. At just 22, she was already making waves in Hollywood, capturing hearts with her talent and beauty. But little did anyone know she was about to become entangled in a scandalous affair with none other than the dashing Clark Gable. A 34-year-old Gable, already married, diving headfirst into a clandestine romance with the much younger Loretta Young. Their flirtation soon turned into a scandalous affair, and to complicate matters further, Young became pregnant. It was the kind of situation that could spell disaster for both their careers and reputations. Some reports claim that Gable actually forced himself on the actress and that the sexual activities between them were not consensual. When Clark Gable realized how messy the situation was, he reached out to the one person that could fix it, Eddie Mannix, a fixer with connections deep in the heart of Hollywood. He wasn't just any friend to Gable, he was the kind of friend who knew how to clean up messes, no matter how messy they were. Mannix's solution was as ingenious as it was morally dubious. He orchestrated a plan for Young to fake adopt her own child, effectively concealing the scandal of being an unwed mother. It was a move straight out of the Hollywood playbook. Young, determined to protect her child from judgment, went along with Mannix's plan, confiding only in the inner circles of Hollywood's elite. And so Judy, as she would later be named, grew up believing that Loretta Young adopted her. But as Judy grew older, the truth became harder to conceal. It was difficult to ignore the resemblance between Judy and Clark Gable. Soon enough, rumors began to spread, and people started asking questions. Years passed, but secrets have a way of coming to light. On Judy's wedding day, she confronted her mother, demanding to know the truth, and in a moment filled with emotions and regret, Young finally revealed the truth to her daughter. Judy herself later confirmed the truth in her autobiography, Uncommon Knowledge, laying bare the secrets that had been buried for so long. In the end, Eddie Mannix's solution may have spared his friend Clark Gable from immediate scandal, but it couldn't shield him from the consequences of his actions forever. This decision certainly did not spare Judy from the trauma of growing up without parents. Why Mary Nolan had 15 abdominal surgeries. If you have ever heard about Hollywood fixers, then the name Eddie Mannix certainly rings a bell. He was the one who was responsible for making most of MGM Studios' scandals disappear. Whenever something occurred and it could damage the image of the studio, he would go behind the scenes and clean up the mess before the public got to know about it. However, in July 1935, he was not doing someone else's dirty laundry. The scandal was right at his doorstep. His former lover had publicly accused him of maltreating her and ruining her life. He denied all the allegations, but when her friends and family began to speak up about what he did to her, things got a little complicated and he had to find a solution and find it fast. Mary Nolan, Mannix's ex-lover, was a well-known actress in the 1920s. Truth be told, life and career were marked by both successes and personal struggles. Nolan began her career as a Ziegfeld Follies showgirl before transitioning to silent films. She quickly gained attention for her striking beauty and talent on screen. Mary Nolan, initially performing under the name Imogen Robertson in Germany, began her film career there with Verborgene Gluten in 1925, followed by Die Feuertanzerin, which garnered her favorable reviews and a contract offer from Universum Film AG. She worked steadily in Germany until 1927, declining offers from Hollywood producers until Joseph M. Schenck of United Artists convinced her to return to the United States. Upon her return, Nolan faced scrutiny from the press and women's groups due to her past scandal, prompting United Artists to suggest a name change to Mary Nolan. She made 2 films with United Artists before joining Universal Pictures in August 1927, where she received good reviews for her role in Good Morning Judge. In the same year, she was said to have been involved in a relationship with Eddie Mannix, who allegedly used his connections to help boost her career. Mannix was married at the time, so they kept their affair a secret for as long as they could. Nolan's career received a significant boost when she was loaned to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer for West of Zanzibar in 1928, starring alongside Lon Chaney and Lionel Barrymore. The film was a hit, as was her subsequent loan to MGM for Desert Nights in 1929, opposite John Gilbert, further solidifying her status in Hollywood. However, Mannix and Nolan's affair ended abruptly in 1929. While no one knows for sure why the affair ended, it was said that the actress became an emotional wreck in the following years. Her career began to decline rapidly, and she was said to have displayed erratic behavior on sets. After a long battle with substance abuse and financial problems, her life was in shambles. It was clear that there was a lot of pain buried deep within her, but no one knew what was causing it. It was in 1935 that Mary Nolan decided to open up about what she went through in the hands of Eddie Mannix. Initially, it seemed like a publicity stunt by a desperate actress, but as time went on, people began to see that her claims were not far-fetched from what others had accused Mannix of. According to her, she lived with him in the Ambassador Hotel from the year 1927 to 1931, and they were actively in an affair at the time. As time went on, he began to treat her badly and would even go as far as hitting her and inflicting wounds on her body. She also claimed that he was responsible for the decline of her career and that he allegedly used his influence to ruin her career at a certain point. However, the most shocking part of her story was on the day he attacked her and hit her abdominal area so badly that she had to be hospitalized. The damages he caused were so severe that she had to undergo over 15 surgeries in order to survive. After she sued him, he denied all she had said and claimed that she was using the story to gain fame and sympathy from the public. But despite his claims, Mary Nolan had a solid army of witnesses behind her. Her friends and family revealed he maltreated her during the time that they were together. He also allegedly forced her to terminate multiple pregnancies, and there were times when she had to go on set with bruises because of how badly he hit her. As expected, Mannix did everything in his power to bury the story. It was said that he sent a private detective to her house to threaten her, and this was what made her drop the lawsuit. While there was no concrete evidence, anyone who heard about Mannix's heinous crimes knew that there was at least an atom in Mary's story. In the end, Mannix won and was able to bury a story that could have potentially ruined his image and career.
You cheered for them, quoted their lines, maybe even defended them online. But behind the scenes, these 10 actors weren't misunderstood. They were protected, and what they did, it's all documented. Flynn's scandalous trial. In the early 1940s, Errol Flynn was the king of Hollywood adventure. He played heroes with swords and charm, stealing hearts in Robin Hood and Captain Blood. But off-screen, things were far darker. In 1942, Flynn was charged with inappropriate conduct involving 2 teenage girls, Betty Hansen, age 17, and Peggy Satterley, just 16. One said the incident happened at Flynn's Hollywood home. The other said it took place on his yacht, the Sirocco. Both claimed he took advantage of them while they were drinking. Flynn denied everything and pleaded not guilty. The trial started in early 1943 and became national news. Headlines called it the trial of the century. Flynn's defense team went after the girls' reputations hard, claiming they were lying for fame. Some newspapers echoed that view, calling them girls with wild past, despite their age. Meanwhile, Flynn sat in court calm and smiling, cracking jokes with the press during breaks. The prosecution brought in witnesses, photos, and letters. Court documents showed troubling patterns. Flynn had allegedly bragged to friends about his adventures with young women. But the jury, made up of 9 men and 3 women, didn't convict. They found him not guilty after 13 hours of deliberation. Even though Flynn walked free, the case left a mark. His once squeaky clean image took a hit. Behind the pirate grin and sword-fighting flair was a man whose private behavior had gone under a microscope. For years after, fans were split. Some stayed loyal, others never saw him the same way again. Hollywood didn't cancel him. In fact, Warner Brothers doubled down on his bad boy appeal, putting him in more man-of-danger roles. But the truth was out. The man behind the legend had been dragged into court over serious claims involving minors. Mitchum's marijuana arrest. Robert had that sleepy-eyed charm and a voice like gravel. In the late 1940s, he was a rising star of film noir, tough, cool, untouchable. But in 1948, his real-life reputation took a major hit. That year, Mitchum was arrested during a late-night party in Laurel Canyon. Police raided the house and found marijuana. Mitchum, along with a young actress named Lila Leeds and 2 others, was taken into custody. The news hit like a bomb. The star of Out of the Past had been busted for drugs. The trial wasn't long. In early 1949, Mitchum pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 60 days in county jail, plus 2 years of probation. He ended up serving 43 days. During his time behind bars, photographers caught every moment, from shaving to sweeping floors. Life magazine even ran a photo spread of him mopping the jail floor, looking almost amused. Mitchum claimed the whole thing was a setup. He later told reporters that the drugs were planted or that he'd been targeted. But he didn't fight too hard in court. Some say he wanted to get it over with. Others think the studio advised him to lay low and ride it out. And that's exactly what happened. Rather than destroy his career, the scandal gave him a new kind of appeal. He became Hollywood's rebel, tougher, edgier, and more real than the clean-cut leading men of the day. RKO Pictures even re-released one of his older films to cash in on the press. Still, the arrest stayed with him. In interviews years later, Mitchum joked about it, calling the jail time just a bad weekend. But fans who remembered the headlines knew it had nearly derailed him. In a time when marijuana was seen as dangerous and criminal, Mitchum's case stood out. He was one of the first big-name actors to get caught up in a drug scandal. It shook up Hollywood's clean image and opened the door for the idea that stars weren't always saints. And from a smoky jail cell in Los Angeles, the message was clear. Even Hollywood's cool guys weren't untouchable. Sheen's clash with Denise Richards. In the early 2002, Charlie Sheen was back on top. After years of trouble, 2.5 Men made him a television superstar. He played a lovable bad boy, and people thought it was just a role. But in 2005, the mask started to slip. That year, his wife, actress Denise Richards, filed for divorce while 6 months pregnant. The papers painted a dark picture. According to court documents, Sheen had a violent outburst that same year. Richards claimed he threw a chair at her while she was holding their baby daughter. She also said he made threats and showed a pattern of anger. The public was stunned. Sheen had worked hard to shake off his past issues with drugs and sex work. The new image was of a reformed dad with a hit show. But the legal filings told a different story. Sheen denied the claims. He said Richards was trying to ruin his reputation and block him from seeing their kids. But the judge saw enough to grant her a restraining order. For fans, it was a shock. The guy who made them laugh every Monday night was now the subject of headlines filled with anger and fear. The drama played out in the press for months. Richards spoke out in interviews, saying she stayed quiet at first to protect their children. She described feeling unsafe and manipulated. Meanwhile, Sheen continued filming, cracking jokes, and pretending nothing was wrong. Behind the scenes, CBS stayed quiet. The show stayed on the air. Ratings were strong, but the cracks were visible, especially to those who read the court filings. This wasn't Sheen's first red flag, and as time would show, it wouldn't be his last. But in 2005, this was the moment many realized his comedy persona might be hiding something darker. The tension between sitcom fame and real-life behavior was too strong to ignore. Gooding's nightclub incident. For years, Cuba Gooding Jr. was Hollywood's feel-good guy. His Oscar-winning role in Jerry Maguire made him a household name. He shouted, "Show me the money," and the world loved him for it. But in 2019, the tone changed. It started with a night out in June 2019. A woman claimed that Gooding touched her inappropriately at a rooftop bar in Manhattan. She filed a police report, and days later, Gooding turned himself in. He denied the accusation and pleaded not guilty. His lawyers said there was security footage proving he did nothing wrong. But as the case moved forward, more stories surfaced. Prosecutors revealed that 14 other women had also come forward. Their claims dated back as far as 2003. One woman said he grabbed her at a party. Another said he made crude remarks and touched her without consent at a restaurant. The reports varied, but they painted a pattern. Gooding's legal team pushed back. They said the stories were exaggerated or taken out of context. He kept denying any wrongdoing. But the media attention only grew, and so did the damage to his reputation. In 2022, Gooding pleaded guilty to 1 count of forcible touching in a deal that allowed him to avoid jail time. He later withdrew the plea and reached a settlement in a separate civil lawsuit in 2023. The details of that deal weren't made public. By that point, the damage was done. The same guy who once danced on stage holding an Oscar was now best known for court dates and headlines. Fans who grew up watching him in movies like Radio and Men of Honor were left wondering how things got so far off track. The incident forced a lot of people to rethink what they thought they knew about Gooding. His once wholesome image had taken a serious hit, and no amount of charm could erase the reports. Brand's troubling accusations. He built a career on shock. He was loud, brash, and unpredictable, part comic, part provocateur. From raunchy stand-up to wild interviews, nothing seemed off-limits. But in September 2023, the headlines stopped laughing. A joint investigation by the Sunday Times, The Times, and Channel 4's dispatches revealed that 4 women had accused Brand of serious misconduct between 2006 and 2013. One case involved a woman who said Brand engaged in inappropriate behavior with her at his London home in 2012. She was treated at a crisis center the same day, according to medical records cited in the report. Another woman, just 16 at the time, said she was manipulated into a controlling relationship while Brand was in his 30s. She claimed he referred to her as the child during their time together and once sent a car to pick her up from school. The age of consent in the UK is 16, but the power gap and Brand's celebrity made the dynamic deeply troubling. Brand responded quickly, posting a video to his YouTube channel. He denied all allegations and claimed he was the target of a coordinated media attack. "I absolutely refute these allegations," he said, adding that all his relationships were consensual. But the fallout came fast. YouTube demonetized his channel. His comedy shows were canceled. Publishing deals were paused. Politicians called for deeper investigations, and more women began speaking to reporters. The story dominated UK media for weeks. Brand, who had rebranded himself in recent years as a political commentator and wellness guru, now found himself in the center of a scandal. His older jokes in past interviews resurfaced, many filled with references to risky encounters, dominance, and conquest. What used to be dismissed as just Russell being Russell now felt different. Hammer's shocking text controversy. Armie Hammer once had the kind of career most actors dream about. With his role in Call Me by Your Name, he earned critical praise, a loyal fan base, and leading man status in Hollywood. He was charming, clean-cut, and safe for press tours. But that image shattered in early 2021 when private messages allegedly from Hammer began surfacing on social media. The screenshots, first posted anonymously on Instagram, detailed disturbing fantasies involving dominance and control. The content was graphic, but what made it worse was how many women soon stepped forward. One woman, identified publicly as Effie, claimed Hammer coerced her into a relationship in 2017 and committed serious non-consensual acts. Effie later held a press conference with attorney Gloria Allred, describing what she said were manipulative and traumatic experiences. Hammer denied any criminal behavior. Through his legal team, he stated that all relationships were consensual and based on mutual agreement. From day one, Mr. Hammer has maintained that his interactions were entirely consensual, discussed and agreed upon in advance. His attorney said in March 2021, "Still, the media frenzy only grew louder. More women came forward. Some described emotional manipulation. Others claimed he crossed boundaries in ways that left them feeling used and scared. Stories varied, but the pattern was hard to ignore. The Los Angeles Police Department opened a formal investigation. Hammer stepped away from several film projects, including a major role opposite Jennifer Lopez in Shotgun Wedding. He was also dropped by his agency, WME, and lost brand deals. In mid-2021, he entered a treatment facility in Florida, reportedly for issues related to substance use and trauma. In 2023, after 2 years of review, prosecutors declined to file criminal charges, citing insufficient evidence. Legally, the case was closed. Publicly, it wasn't. Hammer's career hadn't recovered. He gave a brief interview in 2022 where he expressed regret and admitted to being emotionally abusive in past relationships. But the response was mixed. Many felt it was too late and not enough. What made this story hit so hard was how fast it unraveled. One day, Hammer was Hollywood's next big thing. The next, he was gone from screens, projects canceled, reputation ruined by screenshots, and stories too serious to ignore. Masterson's 30-year sentence. He was best known for playing Hyde on That 70-Second Show, a laid-back, wisecracking stoner with a cult following. Off-screen, he lived a very different life. By 2023, he wasn't facing cameras. He was facing decades behind bars. In September of that year, Masterson was sentenced to 30 years to life in prison. A jury found him guilty of 2 counts of serious misconduct involving 2 women. The crimes took place in 2001 and 2003 at his home in Hollywood Hills. Both victims were members of the Church of Scientology, like Masterson himself. They said the church discouraged them from going to the police. One woman told the court she was drugged and experienced serious misconduct while drifting in and out of consciousness. The other described trying to push Masterson off her before passing out. Prosecutors said the evidence was overwhelming, graphic testimony, supporting witnesses, and consistent accounts. The jury agreed. This was not Masterson's first trial. The first attempt in 2022 ended in a mistrial when jurors couldn't reach a unanimous decision. But in the retrial, with new testimony allowed and a more focused case, the jury convicted him on 2 of 3 counts. Throughout both trials, Masterson remained silent. He showed no emotion during victim impact statements, even as one woman looked him in the eye and told him she hoped he'd think about the pain you caused every single day. His wife, actress Bijou Phillips, was present at sentencing but filed for divorce shortly after. Scientology's role in the case drew intense media attention. Victims testified that they were pressured to stay silent, avoid outside authorities, and report misconduct only within the church. One said she was threatened with being labeled a suppressive person if she spoke out. The 30-year sentence marked a turning point. It was one of the longest prison terms handed down to a celebrity in the post-number Me Too era. Fans of That 70-Second Show were left stunned. The cast had once been a tight-knit group. Now, one of its biggest names was behind bars. Masterson's conviction wasn't just another headline. It was a rare moment when the system actually followed through, and the consequences were as serious as the crimes. LaBeouf's conflict with FKA Twigs. He was once the golden boy of chaotic charm. From Transformers to Fury, he built a career on intensity, both on screen and off. But in December 2020, the public saw another side of him when singer FKA Twigs filed a lawsuit accusing him of deeply harmful behavior during their relationship. The relationship began in 2018, but Twigs said the problem started almost immediately. In the lawsuit, she claimed LaBeouf was controlling, emotionally abusive, and physically harmful. One example involved him allegedly choking her in her sleep. She also described an incident where he threatened to crash the car they were in unless she professed love for him. The suit included claims of isolation, manipulation, and even health issues tied to his behavior. LaBeouf didn't deny everything. In a response to the New York Times, he admitted, "I have been abusive to myself and everyone around me for years." He added, "I have no excuses for my alcoholism or aggression, only rationalizations." Still, he denied many specific claims from the lawsuit and argued the relationship was not as one-sided as it was being portrayed. The lawsuit drew widespread media coverage, especially because of Twig's status as an acclaimed artist and advocate for survivors. She gave several interviews describing how difficult it was to leave the relationship and how she hoped speaking out would help others. LaBeouf's career took a hit. Netflix quietly removed his name from its Pieces of a Woman Awards campaign. Planned projects disappeared. Even his agent stopped representing him. By early 2021, he had checked into rehab for inpatient treatment and disappeared from the spotlight. As of 2025, the lawsuit is still ongoing. Twigs has continued to speak out, using her platform to raise awareness about emotional abuse. LaBeouf has stayed mostly silent, surfacing only in rare interviews or appearances. The case opened a wider discussion about abuse that isn't always visible, about how someone can seem charming and talented, yet still cause serious damage behind closed doors. Casey Affleck's on-set misconduct. Casey's career peaked in 2017 when he won the Academy Award for Manchester by the Sea. But long before the red carpet moment, two women had already taken him to court over what they said happened behind the scenes of a different project. In 2010, Affleck was sued by Amanda White and Magdalena Gorka, both of whom worked with him on the mockumentary I'm Still Here. White, a producer, and Gorka, the cinematographer, alleged a pattern of harassment and unprofessional behavior on set. The lawsuits described a chaotic work environment filled with crude jokes, inappropriate comments, and unwanted advances. Gorka claimed she was forced to sleep in the same hotel room as Affleck and woke up to him in bed with her, wearing only a t-shirt and underwear. She also alleged she was subjected to lewd conversations and degrading treatment by crew members, while Affleck, the film's director, did nothing to stop it. White said she was routinely subjected to verbal abuse and that Affleck once grabbed her without consent when she refused to stay in a hotel room with him. Affleck denied all allegations and said the lawsuits were baseless. Still, both cases were settled out of court for undisclosed amounts. No criminal charges were filed, and Affleck went quiet about the situation for years. The controversy resurfaced when he became an Oscar frontrunner in 2016. Critics and advocates questioned how the Academy could reward someone with such a history. Actress Brie Larson, who presented Affleck with the award, made headlines by refusing to clap after announcing his win. It was a moment that didn't go unnoticed. Affleck finally addressed the controversy in 2018. He admitted he had contributed to an unprofessional environment and said he had learned from the experience. But by then, the damage was already done. The accusations continued to shadow his career, casting a long shadow over what should have been his biggest moment. The lawsuits may have been settled, but the questions they raised never really went away. For many, Affleck's off-screen behavior couldn't be separated from his awards or roles. Baldoni's clash with Blake Lively. Justin Baldoni built his reputation as the nice guy of Hollywood. From his breakout as Raphael on Jane the Virgin to his image as a thoughtful director and mental health advocate, Baldoni was known for kindness, charm, and progressive messaging. That all changed in December 2024 when Blake Lively filed a lawsuit accusing him of inappropriate behavior during production of the film It Ends With Us. Lively claimed that Baldoni, who directed and co-starred in the project, fostered a toxic on-set environment. According to court documents, she alleged he made unprofessional remarks in front of cast and crew, pressured her during emotionally intense scenes, and retaliated when she voiced concern. The lawsuit stated that after she spoke up, she was targeted in what her legal team described as a smear campaign, with false rumors about her behavior spread to industry contacts. Baldoni's team denied all accusations. His publicist called the claims baseless and clearly timed to damage his career. Still, the fallout was immediate. He was dropped by his talent agency within days. Several advocacy organizations he partnered with distanced themselves. An award he was set to receive for social impact was quietly withdrawn. The lawsuit sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, partly because it came from someone with Lively's profile. She's long been known as a careful, selective actress who rarely courts controversy. Her decision to go public gave the claims added weight. Support poured in from both fans and fellow actors who praised her for speaking out. His production company released a brief statement saying it supported safe, respectful workplace practices and would cooperate with any investigation. As of mid-2025, the case remains unresolved. Legal teams continue to negotiate, and no final judgment has been made. But the reputational hit has already landed. The man once seen as Hollywood's wholesome alternative now finds himself under scrutiny, not for what he portrayed on screen, but for what allegedly happened behind the camera. It was a fitting end to a list full of actors who fooled the public with charisma only to be exposed by what was happening when the cameras weren't rolling,